When I first started this, like all I really wanted to do was just talk about money. Because like if you can just talk about money, if you can just like free yourself to let yourself, kind of think about it, let yourself say something that maybe you were holding back or afraid to say, like just opening up lines of communication. I think the biggest piece of advice I would say, I think you want to give yourself some kind of financial cushion if you can, right? Like don't wait until the pain is so acute that like you gotta go and you don't have anything, right? Like start beforehand. I think my definition of success now is creating financial freedom for myself, finding ways to not have to depend on others for my own income. That's a big thing that we are currently working on. Like that would be a massive success. And of course, happiness.
Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya, and I'm so grateful that you're here watching or listening to this podcast episode. We'd love for you to share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates. And if you haven't already done so, please follow or subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes and we can get this podcast out to the wider community. Today's guest is Julia Shteynberg, a money coach, passionate about helping corporate women create financial independence and build healthier relationships with their finances. After spending 20 years in the corporate world, she's transitioned into entrepreneurship, focusing on empowering women to take control of their money and use it as a tool to create a life they crave. Her approach blends mindset work with practical financial strategies, helping clients build the confidence and to live life on their own terms. Her journey from navigating life as a first-generation immigrant to overcoming personal challenges to leaving her corporate career and moving across the world has shaped her holistic view of financial freedom and emotional growth. Julia, welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. So, Julia, before we kick into some questions, tell us a little bit about your journey in life, where you came from. You know, what are your highlights? What are the challenges? How did you overcome them? And how do you get to the point where you are now?
It's quite broad, but we'll start.
Just a
So,
summary of your
um,
life.
yeah. So, my family, my parents, along with me when I was a baby, we immigrated to the States from the Soviet Union. At that time, it was the Soviet Union. Now it is Ukraine. And, kind of being in an immigrant family, you learn all kinds of coping mechanisms and techniques, and you learn about money differently and all that kind of stuff because people just, I feel like just from an immigrant perspective, like it's just different than, when you're just a natural born where you are. Different challenges, different, things handled, like thrown at you. So also being firstborn, like a lot of the times I had to kind of like figure things out on my own, like getting a job, first and kind of like, schooling and like homework and all that stuff. So a lot of that was always just like me kind of figuring things out on my own. And that just kind of progressed. And, kind of going to college, like first person in college, I had to work and go to college. My college didn't get paid for, so I had to figure out how to get a scholarship for that and had to work. And then also, thankfully, had my parents' help. And when I was younger, I always knew I wanted to be successful.
Mhm.
I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that I wanted money. I wanted to be comfortable. I wanted, to kind of that kind of high powered corporate like life, what you kind of see in the movies and like all that kind of stuff. So that was always just kind of like my goal. And I was always very practical. Also, I think kind of coming from the immigrant thing, like just super practical. So, going into school, I ended up focusing on finance and business and went into the corporate world, one job and then promotion and then next job and all that kind of stuff, climbing kind of that corporate ladder. And along the way, met my husband, who also his family immigrated from the Soviet Union. So we have a similar background, which is awesome. And along that way, tried to do like the traditional things, have kids, buy a house. The house stuff worked. The kids thing didn't, unfortunately. We tried several times, but it was just not kind of
Mm.
not part of our life story.
Mm,
So kept kind of, doing the corporate thing, until it kind of got to a point. I just remember this very clearly. I remember being, kind of not satisfied anymore with work. It was a bit of a, as you get kind of like higher up, there's more pressure and all of that. And it just kind of got to a point where I was like no longer really enjoying it,
mm,
loving kind of like the journey. And I remember, and I actually ended up working with a career coach, and I remember telling her, I'm like, I always wanted this. I feel like I got to where I always wanted, but it doesn't satisfy me anymore. Like it's just not doing it for me. And she just kind of like smiled knowingly. So that kind of like was the start of my journey of kind of like, okay, what's next? Because this isn't doing it for me. And we don't have kids, so everything's kind of been kind of like stagnant for us for like kind of 20 years, right? Together. My husband and I were together for 20 years, have been together for 20 years. And it just kind of got to this point where I was like, I don't want to do this corporate thing anymore. Like it wasn't
mm.
fulfilling. It was really stressful. It took a massive emotional, mental toll. It doesn't help. Sometimes there's toxicity in workplaces, right?
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, yeah. So it just kind of got to a point. I was just in a really, really tough spot. And like, I don't want to do this anymore. My mental health was kind of at risk, and I just decided to leave. And it was such a bold move. It was something that I was thinking about for probably a good year when a colleague of mine told me that she was doing the same. She's like, I'm just leaving. I can't do this anymore. And I was like, what do, what do you mean you're just leaving? Like, do you have a job? And she's like, no. And I was like, what? I don't understand. I'm like, I'm very responsible. I come from an immigrant family. I am the firstborn. I'm like, what do you mean that you just don't have a job and you're leaving? She's like, I can't do this anymore. And I was like, yeah, no, I mean, I feel the same way. And I remember it took me a good year to give myself permission to leave. And I remember having
Mm,
conversations with like my
mm,
family about it. And it was like, well, are you sure you sure you want to do that? So it was a really long journey for me. But one of the things that gave me a lot of comfort around it was at this point, we've been working, my husband and I've been working for a long time, and we saved a lot of money, thankfully. So money wasn't a worry. Like our household income got cut by 40%, and I was still able to leave, and we were still able to maintain our life, which is like amazing because we were able to kind of
mm,
build it so that we only need one salary. Um, so that part was great, but the other part, the identity piece of it, became very, very challenging. So it was like I left my job and I was like, now what? And through time and through kind of like conversations with friends, with family, through just kind of like the opening up myself to the universe, I realized that I have just kind of like, I don't know what the word is, knowledge. I have the creativity, financial creativity, to be able to kind of like give us this financial freedom. And I realized I wanted to help other women create this type of like freedom for themselves.
mm,
So they're not stuck in a corporate job that they hate. So they're not stuck with a partner that they can't stand or can't leave, right? I mean, that's such a common thing for women.
mm.
So, um, I decided I'm gonna go do that. I'm just gonna go do that. So I did. I didn't know what I was doing. I still a lot of the time don't know, this business side of it, but you just kind of you start telling people that's what you're doing and your passion, and you start helping people, and kind of one thing leads to another, and that's what I
Yeah.
did. And then the Madrid thing, my husband and I live in Madrid now. We left Chicago. It was an opportunity that he got with his job that like we just couldn't pass up. It's
Mm,
something that we both have dreamt of since we were like both like young. Not specifically in Madrid, but like we both wanted to like move to Europe and live in Europe for a period of time. So it kind of came up, and we were like, yeah, like let's do this. It's time. We don't have anything really holding us. So here we are.
yeah. Yeah. Wow, what a story. And like I'm at that space now where I've just come out of a role that I was in for 3 months before I got restructured and went through the 24th restructure and the fourth
Oh,
redundancy. And
Yeah,
I've come to the conclusion that after 20, 30 years of being in corporate world, it's not for me anymore. So again, like you, I'm helping organizations navigate change better and empower their people to also strengthen their own businesses as well. So yeah, it's something that I've venturing into, and it's the start of a new journey. Yeah, but
good for you.
Julie,
Welcome. Welcome to this
yeah,
side.
yeah, absolutely. Well, this is my second shot at it because I did it last year, and then
Yeah.
I it was like universe. I need a job. I need a job, and then it said, okay, here's a job, and then and it's like, well, okay, do you still want a job? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And it's
I
interesting
get
because
it.
like it felt like going into a prison or something, and it brought up a whole lot of trauma from my childhood, of being in
Mm.
a boarding school in an ashram in India. Anyway, I just wanted to say that, but your story is one of resilience and reinvention. Could you share how your experiences as a first generation immigrant influence your views on money and independence?
Yeah, I think it's these things that I'm kind of like recognizing now. We always talked about money freely, like at home growing up. There was never, and it wasn't from, it was the, I never felt like there was any kind of like judgments around it. I never felt like we couldn't do anything. I never got the message like, no, we can't afford it. Like I knew that we could make things work. Like I never really got negative messages around money. It was more very like practical. Like that's what it
Mm,
was. And I think that's kind of like how that's influenced me growing up. Like everything was just very practical, just like very
mm,
matter of fact. And
mhm,
it's not like, no, we can't afford this, like, woe is me. It was like, look, we can't do this, but like, hey, let's go do this. Right. It was
mm,
just kind of like very, it didn't it never felt very emotional. Like never money never very felt very emotional kind of growing up. So I think that
mhm,
that was kind of like a huge factor that kind of influenced me. I'm actually kind of like recognizing that now. Like it was never really emotional. And I think the other piece of it is like I think being firstborn, you just naturally go first, right, at everything. And then especially like with, immigrant parents, like they didn't really help me with my homework. I had to kind of figure it out on my own, right? Like I didn't have a sister or brother to explain things for me. I had to figure it out on my own, you know? So I think a lot of that just kind of like developed a lot of kind of like resilience and a lot of like those like toughness muscles, right? Like I, kind of getting a job at 15. I'm like, well, I want to be able to get things. I'm like, so I'm gonna get a job. Um, Having a job while going to college. Like it just like none of this was like a big deal. It was like, well, I also knew I didn't really want to take out loans. I didn't know why. It was never like my parents were like, don't take out loans, like credit cards are bad. I was just like, I never wanted to feel like I was indebted to anybody or anything. I
mm,
was like, and I don't quite know where that kind of came from. But like I was like, I'm not going to take a loan. I'm going to work. My parents will help, and I also was able to get a bit of a scholarship too. So we kind of like cobbled it all together, you know.
mm, mm, mm.
So I think that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. I also relate to that because I'm a firstborn as well, and I had to learn the ropes all by myself.
Yep.
Yeah, no one there to help me with my homework or anything like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, what lessons from your early years have shaped your approach and how you teach your clients?
Good question. I think kind of like the practicalness of it, like helping my clients remove the emotion from money. And look, realistically, like the way we're bombarded with marketing messages and all of that kind of stuff, and just messages about what money means, and what you're seeing on TV, people that have a lot of money are this way or this particular way, where we're constantly getting these messages. But I think kind of learning how to remove the emotion from like any kind of like money decision making. You're going to have emotions. Like we're all humans, of course. You feel them, you let yourself feel them, but also don't let necessarily the emotions take center stage in driving
mm,
your financial decisions, right? Like get clear on what you want. And that way, when you're clear on what you want, you have less kind of sway when day-to-day things pop up because they're going to pop up and you're going
mm,
to want to emotionally spend. Um, which is fine too, right? Like
mm,
I think one of the things that I'm kind of like learning in my own money journey is like, not to be judgmental and to allow for mistakes and allow room for growth and like it's all okay. It's all
mm.
part of the journey, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go through any fear when you left your corporate job? Was there any fear involved at all? And how did you
Oh my
overcome
God.
it?
You can't. It's like, I think it's like one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life. Like, I think it probably might have been like the scariest thing I've ever done in my life is like leave my corporate job. Oh, I was
So
so
comfortable,
scared.
isn't it?
It
It's so
was
comfortable.
it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You're like, am I doing the right thing? Um, Mama, is it okay? Do you give me permission? I'm like a 40-year-old woman. I'm like, do you give me permission to like make this decision? Like that was I think I was seeking permission externally,
Mm,
which made a huge impact. I mean, I think what took me so long. Um, I mean, I was still scared when I did it. It's not like I overcame the fear. I wouldn't say I overcame it, but I was like, I'm gonna do it anyway. I've been scared doing new things my entire life. I was scared going to college by myself and living on campus. I was scared of getting my first job out of college and before. Like it's all really scary, but you just but so like,
mm,
like it's not an option to not do
mm.
it just because it's
Yeah.
scary.
So what
Yeah.
advice would you give someone who's contemplating a similar leap and is facing uncertainty and fear?
I mean, I think there's always going to be some risk. There's always going to be some uncertainty and fear. I think the biggest piece of advice I would say, and of course, because this is just like my job, I think you want to give yourself some kind of financial cushion if you can, right? Like, don't wait until the pain is so acute that like you gotta go and you don't have anything, right? Like start beforehand. Like if you have an idea that this is maybe something that you want to do, like just give yourself some breathing room because that way like you don't add financials. Like it's stressful as it is. But like don't add another layer of stress, right? So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice. And look, and it's like if you can't, you can't, but kind of do what you can to help yourself, like as
Yeah.
early on as possible. That's what I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah, I mean, if I look back at the the redundancies that I've been through, four of them in my career, and they definitely weren't something that I decided I was going to do. They were forced on me. Um, but in hindsight, if it's like it would have been good if I was ready, and, always had something in the bag type thing just in case. Um,
Mhm.
but then you're living from a place of fear all the time. So, um, you know, yeah, it goes swings and roundabouts, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, how did that experience reinforce your belief in the power of financial independence and mindset as well? Like,
Well,
what was the mindset like at the time?
yeah. Well, I want to talk I actually want to say one thing about like the living in fear, like the one point that you mentioned about like living in fear and like living in scarcity.
Mm,
I don't necessarily think it's living in fear. I think, you think of the way I would think about it, or I would recommend, I would reframe it, is
mm,
it's not that you're living in fear. It's like, look, you're hoping for the best, but you're also kind of protecting yourself. And I
mm.
don't think that's necessarily like living in fear.
No, it's not. No, no.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, for me, it was most of my life was living in a space of lack and scarcity, and it's only in the last year and a half, 2 years that I've actually broken away from that through healing, through my trauma.
Mhm.
But for most of my life, I was like, I've never got enough. What am I going to do? And imagine living like that. Well, I know firsthand. I don't need to imagine because I know firsthand what it was like. Um, but yeah, imagine what other people are going through, especially in this current financial market where lots of people are losing their jobs and It's challenging. So from a mindset perspective, like how did that belief, the power of financial independence, um, what was your mindset like at the time? Like what was happening for you?
Like when I was leaving my job.
Mm.
Um,
And what was your mindset like before and after the transition?
yeah. I mean, before, it's a great God, it's a really great question. Um, before you're like you're getting a steady income, right? So you're kind of like relying, it's scary, right? The fear piece is really real. Like you're scared, like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I don't know anything else. This is all I've known, right? Like kind of like lack of kind of almost belief in yourself. And also, depending on your situation, like I think inevitably, like your self-esteem gets a little bit impacted too. So if your corporate job situation gets so bad that you're leaving, there's probably something kind of negatively affecting you. So that really kind of negatively affects a little bit like your self-worth and your self-belief, right? So there's a lot of like, I was kind of trying to battle through that as well. Um, but then afterwards, it was just this like massive sense of like relief and this kind of like I really had to work on myself, like I will be okay. I
Mm.
will figure it out. I will find something. I have many talents. The identity piece was probably like the hardest thing that I struggled with, because I was doing kind of the same thing for 20 years, and then it's like, well, now what? Like, I don't have any
Mm.
other skills, you know? And it's like, no, you do. You can learn, you can create new things, you can evolve. And I think that was kind of the biggest thing, is like believing I can evolve. I think a lot of people get into kind of, at least, I don't know, our generation, right? You kind of get into work and you're like, this is all I'm going to do and I'm going to keep growing. But like, and there's almost a little bit of fear of like learning new skills and kind of maybe moving horizontally or taking a step down, but it's new. And I was like, no, I can do this. Like I've done it
Mm.
before. I can do this. So I think that was
Yeah.
kind of the biggest mindset shift, is kind of like the confidence that I will figure this out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you mentioned moving to Madrid. That's in Spain, right?
Yeah.
Is that in Spain? Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was both. That would have been a challenge, but an amazing opportunity for you as well, right? What did that
Yeah.
transition teach you in redefining, excuse me, redefining productivity and finding a new sense of identity? Since we've been talking about identity, like, what did it teach you?
Mm. It taught me that I am stronger than I had ever thought possible. Kind of like immigration usually does. I have a newfound respect for immigrants, for my family, for other immigrants, you know. Um, this is something that we didn't have to do, we wanted to do, like, and you're not often in that position as an immigrant, right? Like I mean, right? Like a lot of times it's like you have to. So it's kind of like
Mm,
it's almost from fear versus from you're running away from something versus kind of running towards something, completely
hmm
different mindset.
mm,
So it's kind of taught me again, kind of on that path of like resilience, like coming here, like it was just me and my husband, and I had no family, I had no friends, I have no language. I just started my business. I was like, what the F am I gonna do with myself? Like, I think that was the biggest thing. I remember the day that my husband left for his job, and like, my husband kind of had a built-in almost kind of like social network, right? He's going into an office. I remember he left and I'm sitting on the couch. We're like 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in or something. And I was like, I have the entire day and the entire week and the next God knows how long. And I'm like, I have nothing to do. Like it was terrifying. Like getting like it was a really uncomfortable and scary moment for somebody that's like so driven, corporate next steps, promotion, make money, boom, boom, boom. It was scary,
mm.
very lost.
Yeah, I can
Um,
imagine.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was a very hard time. Like it's good. Like I went there like knowing that this is what I wanted, but like in that moment, you're like, okay,
Mm,
so now what?
mm.
You know?
So
Yeah.
what habits did you build? What did you end up doing to regain that sense of purpose again?
Yeah, I try to focus on like I try to find what it is that interests me. I feel
Mm,
like, kind of also being in corporate and kind of like you're in this hamster wheel a little bit, where you're like you just kind of go without stopping to think like, what do I like? What do I want to
mm,
do? And so I really tried hard to focus myself on like rediscovering that, starting with just like finding the nearest coffee shop. I know I like coffee shops. I'm like, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to go to the nearest coffee shop. I'm going to sit there for 5 hours if I need to just not be in the house so I can put on some makeup. I can put on some underwear, and like leave the house. And that was kind of the start. It was just like, it was really small. It was like I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I know I like coffee shops and I know I want to get out of the house. So I'm just going to do that. And it slowly builds from there. It slowly
yeah,
builds from, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I'm in the space at the moment where I'm at home most of the time, and yeah,
Are you
uh,
wearing underwear? As long as you're
abs
wearing underwear.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, had a shower, got dressed, and yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about like I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, like might go and work from a cafe one day, just this week, just go and sit at a cafe and work from there. Yeah, and it just means that you network with, you meet other people and you network with people as well. Um,
Yeah.
so, what would you say to someone who's feeling lost after a major change? Either they've been made redundant, they've gone through some sort of restructuring, they and they don't know where to start rebuilding themselves.
Mm, I get that. I would say be easy on yourself.
Mm,
Um, give yourself the time, give yourself the space to cry. I cried a lot. I still do, like just give yourself the space because I feel like, you know, when that happens, it's so unexpected and you're like, you okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? Right? Like, right. So hopefully you have a financial cushion so that you can give yourself some space and some room to breathe and some time to really like figure out to take some next steps that, will kind of help lead you in kind of like the next direction. That's what I would say. I was like, give yourself the space and give yourself the grace. I think
yeah,
that's the most important things.
absolutely. Yeah. So money is money mindset, and money and mindset are very closely linked, right?
Mhm.
And it's in your coaching as well. Why do you think there's so many people struggling to build a positive mindset around money, and how do you help them shift that?
Yeah. I think, based on what I'm like hearing with my clients, I think people don't see positive experiences with money. And I think people don't talk about money. I think so.
Mm,
So I would say not talking about money before even the positive experiences. I would say like like everyone that I talk to, they're just like me and my family never really talked about money. Like I
mm,
don't know, right? Like I don't even know. So then all the messages that they got, they then started kind of attaching meanings and attaching stories to them that may or may not be true, right?
no,
Right?
because
Yeah.
money is neutral, right? It's a tool, and
Right.
yeah,
It's just a
and
tool.
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So I
yeah.
think I think the biggest thing is like, kind of like what when I first started this, like all I really wanted to do was just talk about money. Because like if you can just talk about money, if you can just like free yourself to let yourself, kind of think about it, let yourself say something that maybe you were holding back or afraid to say, like just opening up lines of communication, because that's where I think people will see that like we're all quite similar. We all
Mm,
think similar things, right? So I think that's the like really the biggest thing.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What do you think are the most common money blocks that you see in your clients? How do you guide them to overcome those money blocks?
Yeah. Yeah. I see a lot of like fear. I see a lot of fear because I think because we don't talk about it as a society and as a and so many cultures. Like now that I'm like in Madrid and I talk to people kind of like internationally, like so many cultures don't talk about money. They put this like stigma. So there's a lot of fear. There's fear around like, ooh, I don't actually know enough. Like that's what I hear a lot from people is like, well, I don't know how to create a plan. I don't know what's right. People, the other money blocker, I would say people think there's a right way. Like, and there's actually not a right way. And that's like a lot of the things. So it's like fear and kind of getting through this whole like, well, what's the right way? What's the wrong way? I once had a client ask me, she's like, well, just tell me how much I need to save and I will just do it. Like how much I need to move away, like for my paychecks. And I was like, okay. I'm like, and this was someone, she was like living paycheck to paycheck. She was spending everything. I'm like, if I tell you that you now need to put away $500 from every single paycheck, I'm like, would you be able to do that? And she was like, no. I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to tell you that you need to put away 500, right? So it's like, I'm not going to tell you what's right. Like, we will come to this together based on what's important to you, how you want to live your life, and how can we make, small adjustments in day-to-day life as you start anchoring in something bigger than just kind of like the day-to-day. So that's what I would say. I would say it's like the fear, and then the thinking that there's like a right way. And the way we work through that is really just reframing. And the
Mm.
fear, the fear piece, like I make them look at their money. Like that's one of the things. Like we can either do it together on the phone or like on, video. Because that's part of it. Like you have to look at where it's going. You don't need to know by the penny, but like broad
At,
brush strokes, you gotta
at
know.
at least know where you're spending your money, where it's
Yeah.
going, and be able to, and then look at it and say, hey, oh, okay, well, I didn't know it was going there,
Yeah.
and maybe I don't need that anymore, you know? Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Especially with the subscriptions that we end up
Yeah.
purchasing, right? And we end up,
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah. So,
I agree.
yeah. So, what practical financial strategies with mindset can work to create lasting change?
Um, I think we work a lot on I'll challenge them. I get a lot of like self-judgment. So that's a huge strategy that like I'll work on with my clients a lot. Like they'll like, and it just comes up in their language, like, oh, I was frivolous. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. And I'll just kind of, I'll challenge them on that. Like, what frivolous? Says who? Says who? Why is that frivolous? If it's something that you love, why is that frivolous? A lot of things that I hear is like, oh, well, I don't spend money on like expensive shoes or expensive bags because like that's not important to me. I'm like, well, I do. It's important to me,
Yeah,
just kind of like challenging, like it's okay.
it's that programming, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
yeah. Someone said that in the past, and then people have latched onto it and given it meaning. Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
then judge themselves if they do. If I judge myself for what I spend on jewelry and clothes and shoes, like I would not be where I am. But like it's okay. Then I don't spend on other things, right? Like you just got to figure out what your values are. And that's probably the biggest part is like kind of challenge them to not be so judgmental and to let themselves enjoy. I mean, money, you make money so you can enjoy it to elevate your life to live a good life. Like that's what it's there for. Like
yeah,
take care of yourself and enjoy your life.
yeah. Check your values and change them to a life that you want to live, and
Yeah.
a life you love to live. Um, and I guess part of that is also healing through a lot of the trauma or the also changing the programming that we have
Hmm.
around money
Hmm.
and what we've been told. Like, people have been told money doesn't grow on trees. Well, yes, it does because paper comes from trees and money comes from trees. I mean, nowadays it's all electronic,
Yeah.
but still, money is a object. It's a tool that we use. And look, for me, uh, that scarce, as I said before, that scarcity and lack it was always there, present. And I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
can't do this and I can't do that. And I'm like, whoa, hang on. Um, and it's all about working out what your priorities, what your values are. and then living authentically to those values and making sure that your beliefs are supporting you and not um, sabotaging you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
agree. I agree. And also making sure like letting yourself, I think a lot of the stuff comes like a lot of kind of the money issues, whatever you want to call it, comes also through like um not letting yourself feel negative feelings. Like no one wants to feel negative, right? No one wants to feel upset or disappointed, right? So what do? They spend money or they'll eat, right? That everyone's gonna kind of have different coping mechanisms with like to buffer their feelings, to kind of like push away the negative. I'd rather feel good instead. So it's like, a lot of this work is also just and I don't have money trauma, thankfully, but like, I understand some people might. So, you may need some therapy too to just like, you gotta let yourself feel your feelings so that you're not spending money to cover that, so
Mm.
that you're spending money to like live a life that you truly love. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So like on Thursday, this coming Thursday, in 2 days' time, this podcast is a year old. And happy birthday, yeah. And
Yeah.
uh and my girlfriend and I were talking about going out for dinner. And at first I was like, oh, that place is too expensive, or that. And then she said to me, we're going out to celebrate. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't care how much it costs. We're going to go and celebrate because it's not like we do this every day, right? So it's yeah.
Good for
So
you.
and it's so cool that I have a girlfriend who's supportive, but also challenges me on the way I speak about things.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever had anyone that did that for me. And I really appreciate that because it's like she calls me up on my bullshit, right? She calls me
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
up.
Good. That's
And she,
important. That's
yeah.
important. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, good for
So
you for being open to that too, because it's like it's one thing to have a partner that's gonna kind of challenge you and call you out on that. But the flip side of it, it takes two to tango, as they say. Like, so you have to be receptive and open and not defensive, right? So good for you. Good for
well
you
the
guys.
well the interesting thing is maybe a couple of year or two ago I would have been defensive. But I've done a lot of growth and a lot of work on myself. And I'm like, now where I am in my life, I'm like, give me feedback. Give me all the
Yeah,
feedback
yeah,
you can give me. I'm like, just slap it on me,
yeah,
because especially when you're on this coaching journey, you're wanting to become the best version of yourself. And I'm also living from a place of vibrational energy, of living from a place of love, rather than.
mm,
So now I love money. Money and I have
yeah,
a good relationship, you know. And I did this. I remember a while ago. I did this meditation where I saw money at the knock on the door, and I opened the door, and money. It was like this figure of a human, but it was money. And I said hi, and Money said, "Can I come in?" And I said, "Sure." I let Money come in, and then I saw Money go and sit on a couch, and I then went and sat next to the couch, and I said, and Money said, "Well, you've been ignoring me, and you've been pushing me away." And I'm like, "Oh," and I went,
hmm,
"I'm sorry." And he said, "I love you. I want you to love me." And I went, "Okay." And I then visualized myself giving a hug to Money, and we
ah,
we mended that relationship, and then yeah, it was a
I love
powerful
that.
thing. It was a powerful meditation that seeing Money come in and being able to then see all the things that have been holding you back, the blocks that have been holding you back, and then be able
Mhm,
to let Money into your life and say, "I love you, Money."
mhm.
And I've been reading the book Think and Grow Rich, and I've been learning a lot from that book as well. So I've written
Mhm.
down like what my intention is, and in terms of what I want to earn in my business, and and every morning, every night, I read that before I go to bed when I wake up. So yeah.
Good
So
for you.
I would say if you're watching this episode and you've got some blocks, start building a relationship with money in a way
Mhm.
that money is your friend. It's a tool. You love it. It loves you, and it
Mhm.
flows. It's your birthright. Money. There is enough abundance in the world of
Mhm.
money to for everyone to have money, and it's your right. So embrace it. And yeah, yeah.
I love it.
So how do you encourage clients to navigate their financial or personal setbacks without feeling defeated?
Um, it's a good question. Look, I'm like, there's gonna be shit days, right? There's gonna be shit weeks. Um, but I think it's really important to be able to find something for yourself that regrounds you. And that could be a ritual, that could be of, kind of talking to a friend, that could be find something that will kind of get you to a place of regrounding because it's inevitable. Like you're gonna have setbacks, right? You're gonna have quote unquote mistakes, but like kind of like maybe like what I would kind of tell my clients, maybe kind of create some kind of jot down a list of like some thoughts and sayings, like when you are in a down place, when you do feel defeated, things to kind of like get back that's going to kind of center you. Um, and I wouldn't hide from those feelings either. Like I wouldn't try to push them away. Like, I mean, I'll be very vulnerable and frank. I had a moment earlier today where I felt a little bit defeated. It was rough. I had a little bit of a rough time. And I was like, I was crying. I called my sister. I was crying. I called my husband. I was crying. I'm like, but it's like I let myself cry. But then I also was like, you know what? This is part of the journey. And like kind of got back to I have a way to kind of like center myself. And I got back to the journey. I was really looking forward to like talking to you, just kind of just get right back on that horse.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
you
And
got to
it,
find something that works for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and when you're feeling often when you're feeling defeated means you're feeling lonely and
Yeah.
you've got no support there. And I think it's important so that we reach out to people and like we're doing, we're doing a podcast interview, but we're having a chat, and it's like, and you know, I know you're teaching women, but I mean, I'd love to learn a few things about money as well because that's something
Yeah.
that's been impacting me. But like I've been listening to this podcast, a guy in Australia, and I've been learning lots about money just through this podcast. I've also on Mind Valley, there's a
Mhm.
course that I'm doing. This Japanese guy that talks about your relationship with money, and so. I've been learning all these different things, and but yeah, reaching out and like I look forward to these podcast interviews because it's like I'm going to learn something today. I'm
Yeah.
going to learn something new that I didn't know yesterday.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. So
Beautiful. I love that mindset. I love that perspective. Like,
yeah,
just what am I going to learn? I know I'm going to learn something. What am I going to learn? Looking
we're
for that.
we're lifelong
Get
learners.
out.
Well, that's right because the thing is when we don't come with a manual that teaches us everything that
Mm-mm.
how to have a relationship with money, how to do this, how to do that. It's something that we learn along the way. And I think there's something great about that,
Mhm.
where you get to learn, but you get to create your own destiny and your future and your current
Yeah.
reality, right? And I'm wondering, because as you know, your thoughts, emotions, and your actions create your current reality. So,
Mhm.
what question I have is, what thoughts? What am and what emotionally, what can we do to connect with money to make sure that we have a reality that's supporting us and that's for the
Mhm.
future. Yeah. What are your thoughts
Mhm.
there?
I think my thoughts there would be like, first, it's kind of the way I teach my clients about kind of creating a goal, I think your first step is understanding what your thoughts are about money.
Mm,
It's great to it's great to like want to have a good relationship with money. That's awesome.
mm.
But and that's point B. I talk a lot about like Google Maps, right? Like that's your destination.
It's just, yeah.
But yeah, we don't know how we're going to get there until we know what our actual thoughts are. So I think the first step is to just really kind of like give give yourself carve out some time. Like, what do I think about money? Um, what have I heard about money? Like these are things to kind of journal or ask yourself, like, what have I heard about money? What do I think about rich people? What do I think
Mm,
about poor people?
mm,
Um, when I say I love money, how does that make me feel and why? Like what, like really like dig these things out of you because that is going to be one of the things that you're going to have to like kind of get over. Or these are the things you're going to have to get over in order to like you're going to have to see them, you're going to have to understand them, and then you're going to have to create something new in order to get to like, your new destination, your new desired beliefs and thoughts. So that's what I would say. I mean, like there's countless of like just chat GPT, like give me some, money journal prompts, so I can figure out like my own money beliefs and go from there.
I'm going to share something. I've never done this on a podcast interview, but I'm sharing something. So this is something that I got from Paul McKenna,
Oh,
the
love
meaning of
this.
money. So,
Yeah.
there's a people. So he said that if you don't like rich people, then how can you have a good relationship with money? Because the thing is, if you want to
So
be
true.
rich, then you got to love rich people. So people with money are whatever, and this is what you're
Yep.
basically talking about is money makes me people. I had if I had I'd have more money if my parents
Mm-hmm.
always thought that money
Mm-hmm.
causes, and then he then goes he says to then go and change that where whatever you've written with a different word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
he did this live he did this live presentation where he went up to this lady and and basically her mum's voice would go would say something and he says, now I want you to turn that into right, and
Yeah.
then every time she read that she would do that, and all of a sudden it just made it funny, and
Yeah.
that programming went away because that voice was no longer there because it was
Yeah.
now just so
That's great.
so there we go. So that's something that people could utilize. That
Mhm.
I was watching a video. If you look up Paul McKenna, he there's a one. I can't remember which video it was, but on YouTube it's there, and he does this thing around money, um, and even takes you into the hypnosis side of it as well. So that's the other thing is that if it's so ingrained, it may require someone. Um, I mean, I'm sure Julia, you can help them. Although there's also quicker ways as with hypnosis and things that can kind
Oh.
of reprogram. Yeah, but also like I think affirmations are important. The way we
Mm.
and not just affirmations like oh I am rich and I am this, but it's got to be in the present because your subconscious mind only knows about the present moment and it's also um, you've got to be able to resonate with it.
Mhm.
Um, but to me, affirmations is the language that you speak about yourself and about money and about your life. So
Mhm.
w- I started doing that a couple of years ago, where I started to watch what I was saying and actually reframe what I was saying. Words
Mhm.
like "I need." As a word of desperation, I should, could, try. I was talking to someone the other day, last week, and I said, "How's your business going?" He goes, "I'm trying to make it work." And I'm like, "Are you trying or are you just doing? He
Yeah.
goes, "Oh, I'm trying." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. It's true, the language that we use. Like I started listening to a podcast as well, Brooke Castillo, like the life coach school. And it's she brought my attention to kind of like trying, I can't, I should, right? Like all these things, like the way like that we speak to ourselves, the way that we talk about our business, talk about ourselves, talk about money, it all makes a difference.
Yeah, yeah,
It does.
yeah. Do you
Yeah.
know? Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on. I'm going to go on the internet. I'm going to find the words that we can refrain from using going forward. I'm going to
Hmm.
see if I can put that into the podcast notes so that people can have a guide of like, hey, here's some words that to stay away from, and reframe those words to something the opposite of that. So,
That's great.
yeah. So I can do this. I have an amazing relationship with money. Money
Yeah.
is my birthright. Money comes to me. Money flows to me easily. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, effortlessly and
I love
easily.
it.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah. And but then you've got to be open to it because if
Yeah.
you're subconsciously, if you're not open to it, then it's not going to come to you. So it's one thing saying it, but it's actually believing it and really feeling that emotion, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
the heart brain coherence, when you think and then you feel, then
Yeah.
that's when the magic happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, to that point, I just the one thing, like when I tell my clients, like about, I think affirmations are great, but they have to be something that are that means something to you. Like
yeah,
one of the things that I had my clients say, like was living with her ex, like the already divorced husband and, kind of relying on him for some financial support. And I was like, say like, so for her affirmation is like, I don't need so and so's money. And like, you need to say something so that like you feel it in your bones, so it reverberates like in your heart, right? Like you feel it. So it's not just affirmation saying it. It's like you got to feel it in your body.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you feel it in your body, it sends signals to your brain
Yeah.
to start creating that reality. Right. So, yeah, absolutely. So, what role do trust and faith play in the process of overcoming challenges and building resilience?
Ooh, big, big role. I think, kind of what I said before, like beating yourself up and judging yourself doesn't serve you. And I think the biggest thing that I've, kind of latched onto, and it's worked out for me, and I don't know which comes first, the chicken or the egg, is like I trust that I am on the path that I am supposed to be. And that's it. And then you just release, right? And you're not holding on and you're not stressed and you're not like that, like this is all part of it. The breakdown that I went through earlier today, this is all part of it. The shit people that I talk to sometimes, this is all part of it. It's all teaching me
Or learning?
something.
Mm,
Yeah, learning, I'm growing. It's all part of the journey. It's going to get me to wherever my next destination is. And you just, you know, and I think that's perspective. Like, because some people would say, like, well, what good is it doing me? I don't know. But you know what? I choose to think that all of this is for my benefit versus choosing to think that this is garbage and this sucks and like, all that kind of stuff. So I choose to think it's that everything that's happening to me is happening for me, as Tony Robbins would say. Right?
absolutely. It's happening for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say was, uh, yeah, like something I say to my clients or people that I talk to is, are you revolving in that pattern over and over again in that hamster wheel, or are you evolving, right?
Oh,
Are you
yeah.
evolving into the person that you want to become? And the thing is, you've got to step into that person that you want to become to say, be the person now in this present moment. And when you don't have to have it all worked out, but
Yeah.
think about what does it feel? What does it feel like to be that person, that version of yourself that has,
Mhm.
is confident? What does that version of yourself look like, or that is standing up on a stage speaking to people? What is that version of yourself? You know, feel. What is the feelings? A feeling of having lots of money in their life, you know?
Yeah.
And for a lot of
Yeah.
people, having too much money is is a bad thing because they've been taught that money's evil, and you know
Mhm.
the and like they relate it to what the Bible says. It says the money is the root of evil. No, the love of money is the root of all evil, and it's about where you where you put money ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
That's evil. But the thing is, to if you love yourself and if you love money and if you love having money in your life, like it's
Mhm.
like having a girlfriend or a partner in your life.
Yeah.
You love having
Yeah.
that person in your life, then they're going to
Mhm.
stay. But if you start becoming needy, then it's going to run the other way. So whatever you chase is going to run the other way. Yeah.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that energy, right? Like
Energy.
no one wants to, no one, nothing. Like you don't want that like chasing energy. Yeah, yeah.
No,
The very
no.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I was
what?
just reading something about
Yeah.
kind of that like law of attraction, like attracts like. So if you're gonna be open, you're gonna attract openness. Like whatever, that I feel like there's definitely an energetic component to it too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for the listeners or people watching here, if you look up the vibration scale or energy scale of by David Hawkins, you'll see the spiral and you'll see the different stage or different stages or different frequencies of the vibration scale. And you'll see that when you're in survival mode, it's at the your anger and resentment and a whole lot of emotions that are not going to serve you. But when you start getting to 528 hertz, which is love, that's when that's when things start to come into your life. Now, the reason why that happens is because whatever your energy is, you put out there, you attract back to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So if your energy is of anger, then you you're gonna get angry people. You're gonna get people gonna get angry with you because you're putting that energy out there. But if you're putting an energy of love in every area of your life, then it's inevitable. Only love can come back. And so what
Yeah.
happens is that when you go to that whatever vibrational energy level you're at, you become a magnet for that vibration. And whatever you're seeking is also seeking you. So the law of attraction kicks in, and then you attract
Yeah.
that thing in
Oh,
your
that's a
life.
great summary. I haven't like looked into like all of that, the frequency with all that depth. I just kind of like conceptually believe it and it makes sense, a lot of sense to me. So that was really great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's something that I've been delving into, and I absolutely love it. It's like if you're leaking energy in a particular part of your, like you're desperate and stuff, you're leaking your energy. Then,
Mm,
then like imagine having a cup of water, and then all of a sudden it's leaking, and then you haven't got enough water. So, so it's about really making sure that our container, because we are a container, and whatever
mhm.
is in our life is not leaking, but it's also vibrating at the right. As Bruce Lee said, be like water, right? Be
Water.
like
Yeah.
water, be like water, and when the water is in a pot, the water becomes a pot, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's true.
yeah. Whatever
True.
you're in, you become it. So whatever
Yeah.
energy you put out is what you become. And whatever you focus on, wherever. So number of people say this. Dr. Joe Dispenza says that where your where your energy flow, where your attention goes, your energy flows. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so
Tony
we've got to
Robbins
make
says that
sure.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got to
Yeah.
make sure that our attention is in the right place so that the energy can flow to it, your vibrational energy rises, and you then become a magnet to attract that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm,
I love it.
yeah.
I'm all in.
All right. Five quick fire questions
Oh,
and
all
then
right.
we're done. So what is your definition of success and has it changed over time?
God, I don't know. I don't know. I think my definition of success used to be correlated to level of kind of corporate work, right? Like analyst, senior analyst, like that used to be my definition of success, very, very strongly. I think my definition of success now is creating financial freedom for myself, finding ways to not have to depend on others for my own income. Um, that's a big thing that we are currently working on. Like that would be a massive success. And of course, happiness, right? All of this like assumes there is an underlying like focus on happiness, focus on something that, enhances your life. Make sure that,
Mm,
you're not just kind of grinding away.
mm, awesome.
Yeah.
Who's your greatest inspiration and why?
I wouldn't, I don't know if I have one person. I think everybody is inspiring because people overcome such incredible things. Like, my story could be mild compared to others, my journey, but like immigrants are inspiring. Motivational speakers are inspiring. You're inspiring. My parents are inspiring. My husband is inspiring. My sister is inspiring. I think everybody I think everybody is inspiring because everyone's just kind of like trying to live their best lives. So I don't think there's just one person.
No, no. What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
Mm. That like this whole, kind of what we talked about earlier, things happen for a reason, slash things happen just the way that they should.
Mm,
I think that's a big one. Not everybody feels that way.
mm. If you could go back and give your younger Julia self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh God. Stop worrying so much about making mistakes. Like make them fast, make decisions faster. Like that. I would sit in analysis paralysis and I'm in the process of changing that.
Yeah, fail fast and fail often. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
one of my bosses used to say to me, Anthony, do you know what a mistake is? I said, it's a bad thing. He says, no, no. You know, when you make a movie, I said, yeah. He says, you have a lot of mistakes. I'm like, yeah. He says, but eventually you get the right take and you make a
Yeah.
multi-million dollar movie. I'm like,
I love that. I
yeah,
love that. That's so
yeah.
like, yes.
Here's another one. Here's
Lack
another
of a
one.
better word.
Uh, here's another one. I'm in your future. You're in my past, but we're both in the present moment.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yes.
That is a good one, the time zones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Last question. What is one message that you'd like to share with the world?
Mm. One message I want to share with the world. My God, that's a lot of pressure. I think one message I want to share with the
Uh,
world is,
Yoda, come on, tell us.
yeah, right. Yeah. Um, you know, like don't wait.
Yeah,
Don't wait to make improvements and changes in your life. Like I'm sure there are so many people right now thinking, like, God, I would really love to start learning Spanish, get my money together, start a podcast. Like don't wait because you're going to be 30, you're going to be 40, you're going to be 50, you're going to be 60. You're going to hit these, you're going to like you're going to be 1 year older and like that's inevitable. So like just do it now. Do it when you want it. Right? Like don't wait.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, awesome. Now, Julia, if people have been listening to this podcast and especially women who you coach would like to reach out to you or get in touch with you or learn more about your programs and coaching, how can they do that? And is there anything at the moment, programs that you're running that people can join?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So I also want to clarify, yes, I target women, but I also work with men and I work with couples as well. So I am more than happy to answer any questions men have as well, or if they want to work with me. So you can go to my website, www.theluxurioussaver.com. You can also just send me an email and be like, hey, I'm curious to kind of like learn about your program. And my email is fincoachjulia@gmail.com. So
Great.
FINCOACHJULIA@gmail.com. Like that was a little bit of a
Awesome.
test there.
Yeah. We'll put those links into the podcast show
Awesome.
notes so that people can description so that people can click on those. Um, Thank you so much, Julia, for joining me today on the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. It's been a pleasure, and I'd love to get you back, and maybe we could break some of your um, your strategies down, or your teachings down
I would love
into
to.
little episodes and tips and tricks. Um,
Absolutely.
that would be
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. So thank you so
Yeah.
much. And so if you've been listening to this podcast episode, please do connect with Julia or myself. And I'm also running a 5-day challenge from the 25th to the 29th of November. It's around change. If you're going through change in your life, transitions in your life, if you're going through restructuring, if you've been made redundant and you're feeling lost. I've rebranded myself as a business resilience and transition consultant, and so I'm helping people and businesses do change better and also navigate that change and empower their people, and then in turn strengthen their businesses as well. So, but if you've come out of the other end and you are needing some support, I've got a network where I've got people that can help as well. So I'm going to put the link in the podcast description. Please click on a join register, and I'll see you on the other side of that. And so, lastly, I just want to say, if you haven't already done so, please share this episode with your friends, your family, workmates, or someone who can benefit from this. And make sure that you subscribe and follow this podcast so that we can get it out to the wider community. And you don't miss any new episodes that pop up. Lastly, I want to say you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.